Hi everyone, today is day 9 of the speaking challenge. Today I'd like to start my speaking practice from a word of the day, and today's word is to coalesce. It's a verb which has a Latin roots, co, together, and alicere, which means grow, to grow. So coalesce means to grow together or to unite into a whole, for example, for a common end. We can use other synonyms like to mix, to blend, to fuse, to unite, to come together, for example. And here is my sentence. Two sport competing teams coalesced due to the World Championships, which means that two sport competing teams united together due to the World Championship because perhaps they want to win the World Championship and make their country a winner. So I would like also mention that coalesce can be used mostly in written and formal English language. And I would like to talk now about the main topic. Today I want to talk about two different form of tenses. First is past continuous and the second one past perfect continuous. And I really would like to talk about these two tenses because sometimes I feel or I have this problem of how to use correctly, in which cases to use correctly these two forms. For example, I was watching or I'd been working, for example, right? And I think it will help me to show the differences between them and to more clearly understand in which cases I can use both, not both of them, but in which cases it is proper to use either past continuous or past perfect continuous. And it's very interesting that past perfect continuous mostly used in two general cases. For example, when we want to show the duration of some actions before something else happened. For example, they had been talking for over an hour before Tony arrived. Or she had been working at that company for 3 years when it went out of business. And the last one, how long had you been waiting to get on the bus? So we can see in this case that there is two actions, but we emphasize on the first one, which had been occurring before something else happened, right? And we also have to bear in mind that if we want to emphasize on the duration of some time when the action, how to say, had been happening, so we also have to use like for an hour or for 5 minutes or since 1979. So we always have to bear in mind that past perfect continuous directly related to the time or to the duration of time. And the last and the second one, when we can use past perfect continuous, using the past perfect continuous before another action can help us to show some cause or effects. For example, I'm sorry, Jason was tired because he had been jogging. Sam gained weight because he had been overeating. Betty failed the final test because she hadn't been attending class. So here we can understand that, not understand, but we can see the results of some action that had been happening before for some period of time, right? But here we don't talk about like we it's I mean it's not necessary for us to use some key keywords like for 5 minutes or for 10 hours, because I think using this form, past perfect continuous, we presume or we imply that some actions before had been happening like full on, right? I'm sorry. And if to talk about past continuous, here is a bit difficult situation, because past continuous can be used in about five cases. First, when we want to show that one action in progress were interrupted by another action. For example, while we were watching the match, our mom cooked dinner. Or for example, what were you doing when the earthquake started? What were you doing when you broke your hand? So here are some keywords like when and while. The second one, when we want to show a specific time, which can be used as an interruption. For example, at this day last year, I was flying to New York. Or at noon, they were still discussing the project. Yesterday at this time, I was watching a movie. So it's always about specific time in the past. But here is a trick. We also have to remember when we have to use past simple and past perfect. Past simple we used when we just want to show when some actions, at what time some action had started or finished. But if we use past perfect, we want to emphasize that some action had, how to say, was longing for or wasn't processed at that exact moment, right? For example, I can say, last night at 10 p.m. I watched a movie, which means that at 10 p.m. last night I started watching a movie. Or I can say, last night at 10 p.m. I was watching a movie, which means that at 10 p.m. last night I was doing something, but we don't know exactly what time I started to watch a movie. Obviously, or it's very obvious that I started watching it earlier, right? So, and the next situation in which we can use past continuous, when two parallel actions um, happened or were happening simultaneously, like at the same time. For example, it's very simple actually. While you were playing basketball, I was watching a movie. So we can see that here is the two parallel actions which were happening at the same period of time. While he was playing basketball, I was watching a movie. And number 4, atmosphere, which I can relate to the narrative verbs, right? For example, when I walked into the office, several people were busily typing, some were talking on the phones, the boss was yelling directions, and customers were waiting to be helped. Which means when I walked into the office, I could see like how many actions were happening at that period of time. And the last one, we can use past continuous when we talk about some negative people's habits. For example, she was always coming to class late, or he was constantly talking, he annoyed everyone, Or I didn't like them because they were always complaining. And I emphasized on these keywords like always and constantly. Um, yes, and we also have to remember what's the difference between while and when. So while usually followed by past continuous. For example, while I was watching a video, while I was practicing my English, while I was working, unlike of when, which usually follows by the past simple. For example, when she called, when I came, or when I slept. And here are some examples, and you can see the differences between these two keywords. I was studying when she called, or while I was studying, she called, right? So in the first sentence, we talk that something happened when I was doing something. But in the next sentence, while I was studying, I emphasized on the action that was lasting when someone called me. I think it's very easy. And to summarize the general different emphasis between past continuous and past perfect continuous. So when we use past continuous and past perfect continuous, past continuous shows us the, how to say, an action in progress, unlike the past perfect continuous, which shows us more duration of time. Or usually native speakers, if they never use, how to say, if there are no any clues of duration of time, they mostly will be used past continuous, but not past perfect continuous. Then we can see that in past continuous there are 5 cases, or 5 how to say, 5 situations in which we can use this form, unlike the past perfect continuous, which usually uses only in 2 cases. It shows us a duration of some action in the past, or cause and effect. And what else? And keywords. For example, it's more common for past continuous to use these keywords like when, while. But in the past perfect continuous, we mostly use before, because, and since. And I think this is it for today. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry for making such a long video. And have a good day, everyone. Bye bye.